Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Becky Brown.
Hello, everyone. We are so grateful that you decided to tune in today, however you are tuning in, and we would love to hear from you. We always love to hear from you. 1-800-229-3000. And by we, I mean Dr. Alice Benton, psychologist, author, speaker, as well as all-around amazing mom, and Marc Cameron, licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as an all-around amazing dad.
Thank you.
But we want to hear from you, Marc. What's on your heart and your mind today?
Yeah, so today I want to talk about perseverance and the incredible and unlikely story of a guy called Cliff Young. Now, Cliff was an Australian potato farmer. And in 1983, at the age of 61 years old, he showed up to run the inaugural Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon. Now, This is a week-long race for the world's toughest runners. It's 544 miles between the two cities. Now, when Cliff arrived, there was more than 100 other runners there. Many of them corporate sponsors, obviously very well fit, highly trained, diet charts, schedules, top-of-the-line running gear. Cliff showed up in a cheap pair of sneakers and plastic pants, which he'd poked holes in. He even took his dentures out because he said they rattled too much when he ran. Now, when he went to register, he obviously was not taken very seriously, and they laughed at him. And many runners even chuckled when he started at the finish, at the starting line here. And in an interview before the race, he told a reporter, "I grew up on a farm where we couldn't afford horses or tractors, and whenever the storms would roll in, I'd have to go out and round up the sheep. We had 2,000 sheep on 2,000 acres. Sometimes I'd have to run those sheep for 2 or 3 days. It took a long time, but I'd always catch them. I believe I can run this race. It's only 2 more days, and I've run sheep for 3. Now, when the race started, the other runners, they just took off. Cliff, he was very slow, and he just kind of shuffled along. Now, at that time, it was widely accepted that ultramarathon runners, they would run for 18 hours and then they would sleep for 6 so that they could gather energy so that they could run the next day. But Cliff had learned all those years ago that he actually didn't need a lot of sleep. He only needed about 2 hours of sleep, and he would take these 20 to 30-minute power naps. So when the rest of the runners woke up on the first day, Cliff was actually in first place. Now, it took him 5 days, 15 hours, and 4 minutes, which was a record at that time. And he finished 10 hours quicker than the nearest competitor. And only 5 other runners finished the race. Now, Cliff didn't even know that there was a $10,000 prize at the end. And he even felt bad accepting it. He said the other 5 runners had run just as hard as he had. So he split the money evenly between them. Now, Cliff changed the way that ultramarathons are run. Ultramarathoners now, they run with only a few hours sleep, just like Cliff, because he's proven that that's possible, and many even mimic his shuffling style, and it's known as the Young Shuffle. Now, Cliff's story reminds me of King David. King David, both of them learned key lessons on perseverance in the wilderness, looking after sheep in what many might have seemed to think as a boring and a lonely place. David learned to fight the lion there and the bear, protecting the sheep. People vastly underestimated David when he went to fight Goliath, and Cliff when he showed up for the ultramarathon. David didn't even wear King Saul's armor or take on his weapons, but both trusted in their own training, which was done outside of the spotlight of men and not in the way of the world. Now, there's so many lessons from here. Don't conform to the ways of the world. Don't focus on what others think of you. But perseverance, using your current circumstances to grow, even if you're not in the place in life that you want to be. The place you're in now is often where God wants to use you to train you for what's coming next in your life. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work in you so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." So give us a call today, 1-800-NEW-LIFE. You may just be in the right place for you to grow for the next stage.
I love it.
It had become very apparent that some of the things I was involved with were taking over my life.
In today's world, men are barraged with inappropriate content and images all day, every day. Some say that certain behaviors are just no big deal. They're just part of being a guy. But it's simply not true. It's a battleground for every man, and the opportunities to fail are everywhere. The Every Man's Battle Intensive can help.
After 7 years, he just, in one weekend, came back a completely changed man.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle Intensive.
He said this is something that every man should go to. It was definitely life-changing.
Now the intensive is coming to Orange County, California, June 28th through the 30th. Don't wait for him to call. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and use the discount code NLL to save $50.
I just can't say enough of what New Life has done for our marriage.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. I was just telling Alice and Mark, I don't understand running that far. I mean, like I used to run, I did, but I just, that in and of itself would like put me on the sideline. But I know lots of people who are. And one of my running coaches back when I was running said, you can do anything for a mile. And so when I think about those times of testing and the perseverance that we need, sometimes we just need to know, I just need to go one more mile. I just need to do, maybe sometimes it's just go around the block. And, you know, in recovery, we talk about one step at a time, one day at a time. And sometimes it's that 1 hour, 1 minute. But I love that story, Mark. And just want to encourage, if you are struggling, we are here for you and we'll help you. Right now, we are going to go to the calls and we are going to talk with Donna, who's calling us from Houston, listens on Sirius XM. Hello, Donna. How can we help you today? Thanks for calling.
Of course. Good afternoon. My question is, how do I know if I have the right counselor for what I need?
Okay. So I know, Alice, go ahead and ask the questions because you know we're going to have to ask some questions about that one.
I know.
It's a good question because getting the right fit for you to be able to make the progress you want is important. So would you tell us about your situation, and are you already in counseling? Are you questioning the therapeutic relationship?
Of course. I did start counseling a few months ago. The situation is my marriage. I'm married to somebody who is mentally and verbally abusive, and it's not just me. He takes it out on everybody. Feels like his unwarranted opinion needs to be voiced at any time, including criticism. So started going to counseling, trying to find out how to handle the situation, and immediately upon, relating some stories and such, the response was, well, he's a narcissist. He's never going to change. You just need to get a divorce.
Ooh.
And I can definitely see some narcissistic tendencies, but I also know I've been with him for 34 years. I also know that he's not completely a narcissist. So I'm just a little stuck with where to go from here.
Because you want to work on your marriage and you have some reason to hope that maybe he can change?
I do. I would not call him a Christian. I have tried to live my life, but I know that in a way that exemplifies that I know I can't change anybody else. But I'm a avoider, and it's really hard to start conversations with him because of the responses I typically get.
And as you've countered your therapist's initial opinion, has the therapist been able to adjust strategy to help you try to break through with your husband?
A little bit. She still kind of leaves that on the table, that if that doesn't go well, just know that he's never going to change, and just kind of keeps coming back to it. So I don't know. I do want to work on the marriage, but I need the help in getting to the point that I'm even able to start a conversation with my husband about we need help or we're not going to make it.
Donna, how long have you been seeing this counselor?
Maybe 4 months, so not long.
And what do you like about her? Because you continued to go for 4 months.
She's easy to talk to. But, I mean, other than that, I don't know. I'm not sure it's as deep as I need it to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking this question. When one person comes to therapy, with a marriage problem, a good counselor knows that they're only getting one side of the story. And now we can only get one side of the story because, we have that one person in front of us, and of course it doesn't mean that there's not facts that are true, but it is subjective the way that it's taught to us. So sometimes I will ask the client, are they okay? How do they feel about their spouse joining for a few sessions, or even if it's just one session, and they don't join as an official patient, but they join as a collateral, and that way I get to see the other person, and then I can picture in my mind when they're talking about the other person who that other person is and what they might be like. Now, I think when you're picking the right counselor, therapeutic alliance is really important. And therapeutic alliance, you really need somebody who does more than just comfort and empathize with you. You also want somebody who's also going to challenge and empower you. But there are two other legs, I think, to the stool of counseling. So there's the right counselor, but you also need to find somebody who's going to take the right approach with you. And then, the client themselves have to have a strong commitment to change too. So I would look at also what kind of approach is she taking with you. I myself take an attachment-based approach where I help clients understand their emotional triggers, their reactivity patterns, and how that causes a dynamic or a core pattern between two people in a couple's relationship. And when you can get a couple to kind of be able to elevate above the conflict of the week and get out of those details to see how they're reacting in significant ways that were learned, they can learn to start to overcome the pattern rather than to get stuck on the details.
Marc, I want you to speak to Donna about, Donna, you identified as being an avoider, and you're calling us about having the right counselor. So I'm thinking that there's probably an intersection there, because if you're an avoider, it's going to be very hard for you to say what you need to say, even in a counseling situation. Wouldn't you say that's true, Marc?
Oh, absolutely. And especially if, your counselors run out of ideas and they hear you say to them, well, I'm not really sure that I want to do that. A good counselor should be able to kind of pick up on that hesitancy and start to learn how to draw you out. But counseling is a collaboration. And so it's on you too here, Donna, to be able to tell your counselor, I know that you've suggested that for me. I'm not sure that's the approach I want to take right now. Can you tell me how you would guide me through taking a different approach? And see what answers that she has. And if she can't clearly articulate that and outline that for you, then it might be time to try someone new.
And it's okay if you do, Donna. That's the other part of it, right?
A lot of us, Donna, we have to shop around to try out different counselors to find out which one can help me the best with the problem that I have. And so you can even interview a counselor before you have a therapy session with them to say, tell me what you think about divorce, about narcissism, how do you tend to treat it? Because if your therapist beliefs and her core values of what she implements in therapy are not in alignment with yours, you don't want to be led astray by her quick decision of, oh, this is divorce, there's no hope. We know that narcissism, if that's even what your husband has, it's pretty tough to diagnose somebody you've never seen before. So even if your husband is a narcissist, we know that as Christians, there's always hope for change. It's a tough personality pattern to change, but there is hope. Narcissists can be successfully treated. And if you want to follow God's word on divorce, then we Christians should be so hesitant to divorce. And there's only 2 situations in which God even says it's permissible, but he still seems to say there's just going to be so much suffering with divorce. Try what you can. Stick with it. If you haven't tried everything, stick with it, because there is still hope within the marriage. So you can either tell your therapist, I want you to not even bring up divorce anymore as an option, because I'm not going to take that option. And I don't want you to say anymore, there's no hope for my narcissistic husband. Let's look what to do differently. And if you can't, then I want to try out with somebody else. And even just having that conversation, Donna, is practice to not be such an avoider with your husband. And sometimes we have to start practicing with our therapist before we have the courage and the strength, the wherewithal to do it in a tough situation like
And I
marriage.
wonder here too, Donna, if you are more of a pleaser rather than an avoider, because pleasers tend to be avoidant too.
You're probably right, just based on my child. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Donna? We're going to send you a copy of How We Love, which will help you really determine that. We're also going to connect you with a therapist so that you have somebody in the lineup. But I tell you, we say this all the time. When you're in therapy, it's like what you were just saying, Alice. This is a time to practice, not just for the therapist, but for you. You can say whatever you need to say, and it's the great place for you to be heard. And if you aren't being heard, that's also okay for you to say, I'm not being heard. And all of that is in line with practice principles for therapists. And you want to be able to feel like you are being heard. The fact that you're asking the question, how do I know I have the right counselor, might be a little flag saying, ooh, you might not be. But it's don't throw it out before you try to do some of these things that Alice and Marc have suggested. But we're so grateful that you called, Donna, and we'll be praying for the situation. And I would also encourage you, maybe your husband come and join us at our Intimacy and Marriage Intensive, which also could be a great next step for you guys. We are going to go back to the calls, and we are going to talk with Ladia, and she's calling us from Ontario, Canada, and listens on the app. And I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, so you can correct me.
Yes, you are.
Oh, good. So welcome, Ladia. How can we help you?
Thank you for taking my call, guys. So my question today is, okay, let me see if I'm wording it properly. So my husband is being triggered. So my husband's trauma is being triggered by my son, who just moved in with us a little over 2 years. We were together all by ourselves before my son joined us, because we're parenting long distance. It's not his son, but he has been in his life for maybe 8 years or more. But moving in, I tend to see that how do I help not affect my husband in the way that I love my son, which I'm very careful, not because I want to, but because I recognize that childhood trauma in his life, but it seems to be coming on, and he lashes out at my son. And how do I help my son not be affected and be traumatized as well, on top of his trauma he already came with what my husband is doing?
Ladia,
that was a lot.
What does your son do that then seems to trigger your husband?
So first of all, my son moved here, and the minute he moved here, my husband thought he should get a job. And he was 18. The transition was very different, North America versus the Caribbean. And he barely settled, and my husband is like, oh, well, when I came here, he keeps comparing himself to him. When I came here, I didn't get a chance to do this. I was just basically thrown into this, and I did this, and I was able to do this. So he keeps like speaking down, like in a condescending way, and so he didn't really even give him a chance, because he wasn't given a chance as well when he moved here in Canada. And so you see that constant pattern of comparison.
And has your son since gotten a job in these 2 years?
So yes, currently my son got into school, and then he's doing part-time work. And now my husband is like, though he sees it and he acknowledges it, but that's not necessarily enough. It's like, oh, well, when I got here, I was paying my phone bill, so he should be paying his bill. And I'm like, well, he has a part-time job, and he can pay a bill. Just let's see how stabilized this job is before we just throw a bill onto him. Let's do this in stages. But it's like, he needs to man up, and we're not going to spoil him. And he's my only son. I've been away from him for 10 years. We just reunited. And
Ladia, here's one of the things before Marc and Alice continue is that anytime you add another person into a situation, there is going to be a disruption. The problem that you're talking about is how to not make it a disruption. And actually that's probably not going to get you where you want to go. Alice, continue on. I just was watching the time. I don't
what's your husband's trauma? You've mentioned this. What is the trauma?
Good question.
So my husband has been away from his mom for over 20 years. Doesn't have his dad, doesn't have a father figure, his father in his life or his entire life. And he moved here with his mom and his stepdad, but his mom had to leave him and go a year later. And he was only 19, and his stepdad, he was really left. There's an abandonment. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Ladia, you can hear the music. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and we'll hear more from Alice and Marc. And trauma, it's the result of pain, and it continues until we get some healing. And so you're experiencing that full force. And there's a lot of similarities to what your husband experienced. We'll be right back to answer that and many more after this break.
When you give to the New Life Scholarship Fund, you're giving someone hope for a brighter future.
I was kind of in the closet and hit with my struggle. Your donation really made the difference, especially in my situation, because I would have getting laid off from my job.
At the New Life Intensives, hurting people are able to begin a new path towards healing and freedom that has an effect on all of those around them.
I think the people who support New Life financially are people that I'll never know. I'll never be able to thank them personally for the gift that they gave to us. Their giving saved me, my husband, and our family from being torn apart.
To help hurting people to connect to the help they need, make your gift to the Scholarship Fund at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE and specifying scholarships.
Someone called and sponsored me to come this weekend. Whoever that is, just know that you saved a life. Literally, you saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. Daniel Grossman on coaching.
Coaches are really focused on the future and helping people to develop those skills and those strategies to help them move forward in their life. A coach really partners with you to focus on things like personal growth or health goals, spiritual growth, helping you develop in your career or possibly strengthening your relationships or maybe even breaking free from a negative pattern.
If you need a coach for life, your career, relationships, your health and fitness, leadership, and more, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been screened and certified with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
Coaches use different techniques. Some like to use strategic questions and accountability, ultimately empowering you to take those next steps towards your goals.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and talk to us about getting a New Life coach today.
I really believe that everyone can use a coach in their corner.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We're talking with Ladia, whose 20-year-old son just reunited with her and her husband's not going along with this too well. It's a lot of disruption in the family. Marc, let's start with you. How can we help Ladia in this?
Yeah, so Becky, you mentioned there's a lot of similarities in this story. And a trigger is a reminder of past pain, and that is oftentimes unconscious. So even when I'm thinking about the age of your son, who's 20 years old and coming from another country, and it sounds like the same thing happened with your husband here. He was 19 years old, and then the similarity and the difference is, mom, in his case, mom left him, abandonment, and now he's seeing you maybe giving what he wishes he had from his mom, and he's seeing that as maybe even over-parenting here. I think what I would say here, Ladia, is to point this out to your husband, if you haven't, to say, hey, I noticed that you might be triggered by my response to my son, and I'm wondering if that's reminding you of past pain. And I want to be on the same page with you, but it is also a different situation and a different time, and I want to make sure that we are appropriately supporting our son while at the same time challenging him. How can we learn to find the balance of both here?
And make sure, Ladia, to thank him that he wants good things for your son. And his pushing, if this genuinely has taken place, may have helped your son to move along. You might be held back by your guilt and by the lengthy separation you had from your son. So check if you have a tendency to be a little too tolerant, to give your son a little too much time to pursue goals. That might be the case. So giving genuine gratitude for your husband for the good things he has done and is doing then helps him to hear the feedback that some things aren't working. And because there's such long periods of parental separation in all cases, having some family counseling will probably be needed because of the deep abandonment that you're all dealing with and trying to figure out how do we handle this now that the three of us are together. So I would be cautious too to acknowledge that it's not just that you're being triggered, but I think all of us are because we've had such difficult family situations. Let's go in to get some counseling, to get some coaching so that we can pace. Maybe I speed up, maybe you slow down. We can pace our expectations for my son. I'd even want your son involved in those family counseling sessions to help repair the bond that all of you have felt the brokenness from. And everybody can use that adjustment.
I love that idea too, because Ladia, everybody being in the same room, being able to be heard and to carry each other's burdens that's the plan, right? Because your son's not going to be there forever, but the pain that your husband brings into the room is still affecting him. And so there's healing all the way around, and we heal in relationships. We talk about that all the time, that, you don't heal in an isolated situation. So,
and don't be too quick
Marc.
to dismiss that you might also be being triggered here, Ladia, by feeling some guilt from being away. And it is possible that maybe you are over-parenting a little bit.
Yeah.
But you'll have that counselor as that third party to kind of help guide.
That's it. Well, we're going to send you a copy. I'm going to send her Healing is a Choice. Now, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but the reason why I'm thinking about that is because it talks about the 10 lies that we believe. And we want to explore the things that we are believing and not looking at the things, that we need to address, like connecting our life, to risk our life, to forgive the things in our life. And we'll get you connected. I know we don't have a lot of therapists in Canada, but we have coaches, life coaches all across the country, and that could be a good help in getting you the help that you need. But we're grateful that you called today, Ladia, and we'll be praying for your family, praying for complete healing and restoration. We're glad that you called. We're going to go back to the calls, and we're going to talk with Zoo, who's calling us from San Antonio, Texas. And Zoo, you found us by watching I Can Only Imagine. We have a sponsorship on the end of that movie. How can we help you today?
Hi. I'm so grateful that you all do this. I really feel like the Lord put it on my heart to just watch the movie. And so thank you first. Second, yesterday was Father's Day, and my relationship with my father is very, it doesn't exist. He walked out before I was born, and when I did meet him when I was 22, he just was not interested in my life at all. And so, and the father figure that I had growing up, my stepfather, he came into my life when I turned 1, and, he did some really ugly things to me. And I am seeing a therapist, but she's not Christian. And so one of the things she's been pushing me to do is to love myself. But I know in the Bible it says I have to love others, as I love myself. And so I just want to know where that meets. Where do I love myself, and how do I love others if I don't know how to love myself?
I love that, Zoo. I'm so sorry for the pain that you've experienced. You know, we were talking about this before the show about the impact that fathers have in our lives and the pain that you're carrying. There is hope and there's healing for that. We're going to take a short break, Sue, so hold on, and we'll come back after this. But, you know, I just want to say we hear you. We hear the pain, and it's real. And there is a way of healing forward. It's hard. Because we've got forgiveness is part of that, but it's not a one and done. We'll be right back. We'll hear from Marc and Alice after this.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit its addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery. And one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 Steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We're talking with Sue, who has had a lifelong of heartache due to her father leaving her and then her stepfather's mistreatment of her and just the brokenness that those relationships have in our life. Marc, let's start with you. How can we help Sue?
Yeah, Sue, I really feel for you. My heart goes out, especially to hear about your dad not wanting to have an interest in you. And I do see this often, that it can be quite normal for a child to idealize a missing parent, because we want to believe that there's a reason to explain that person's absence, so that the reason is not us. The reason is it's not because I'm not good enough. And so kids can oftentimes go through childhood, you know, with this thought in their mind, like there must be something that kept them away. And, you know, we want to learn to explain our own life story. And to do that, we want to know where we came from. And so we when we can, we want to try and meet our parents. But then to receive that rejection must have been just so devastating and heartbreaking. And I hear your question about how can I love others if I can't love myself. And I think really what you're doing is still trying to find healing for yourself, for those deep emotional wounds. And it sounds like this is going to be a journey. Have you tried counseling? Do you have a relationship with a counselor?
Yeah, I have a counselor right now. Before I had a therapist and or counselor, and we worked through some really hard stuff, but the counselor, she left. She had to move jobs, and so the counselor I have now, she isn't Christian, and I find that kind of it could be hard. I mean, she gives me like practical things to do, you know, for when I feel anxious and stuff like that. But we haven't talked about I just had her. I've only had her for maybe a month now, so.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like, you're connected to this other counselor, and that person leaving, that's another level of abandonment for you. I think what I would guide you to do is to find somebody who's not just going to focus on, symptoms for you. How can I teach you certain strategies or behaviors to calm your anxiety? But somebody who's going to help you make sense of your life story, somebody who's going to draw you out and have you talk about how you felt at different points, so that you can build this coherent narrative, because we know from research that if we go into adulthood with a learned insecure attachment, the way that we earn a secure attachment, because that is possible, is by building a coherent narrative, or another way to say that is by making sense of our life story, and to be able to see the parallels of the emotional triggers that we have in the present, how they're connected to the past, because then when we start to get triggered, we can start to consciously learn how to build an internal dialogue and calm ourselves down and make the connection for ourselves. And that can help us calm down and augment the strategies that we learn. So I would encourage you to do that. Somebody who's going to help you make sense of this life story so that you can learn to just process and tell and see how that might impact your healing.
And we can get you connected to someone too. Alice, what would you say to Zoo?
Well, Zoo, as I hear your reaction, how can I love myself? Aren't I supposed to be loving others? I wondered if you felt guilty about it and think, well, no, I got to love other people. I don't know about loving myself. I got to love others. And they are interwoven. So when we act out love towards other people, like through volunteering, it fills us up, surprisingly. It increases our happiness when we give to other people. Sometimes we're too depleted to give. And so for a season, we have to just receive love, and that fills us up to then be able to give love to others. And so we have to test it out. You might try volunteering and see if that is doable for you at this time in life. And if it's not, then you probably need to increase the ways you're being loved. So if you have safe people, you might say, I need encouragement. Would you tell me some of the good things you're seeing in me, some of the good things that you experience about me? That fills that love tank. We also need it in structured, safe ways when a person who was supposed to love, like a stepdad, misused that position to, it sounds like, abuse you. And so it may be that for a time, only in therapy or only in structured group led by a therapist, only in recovery groups will you feel safe enough to receive love. There's something called psychodrama group therapy, and they can be co-ed groups where in the safety, and again, led by a group leader who's trained in this, you are able to speak as if you're talking to the father or the stepfather, and you're able to have healing conversations with a safe man who's in the group and who's receiving instruction from the group leader how to respond to you in loving ways that your father and your stepfather probably never can. I got to be a part of a psychodrama group, and people were saying things to the man who took the role as a father for us. I'm like, why didn't you ever come to my games? I just wanted you to show up. Why did you leave me when I needed you there? And because maybe our own fathers, they can never do that. They're not healthy enough. Hopefully someday, but not yet. Then we need somebody else to stand in the place so we can have a redemptive experience with another man. And that helps us then receive love and be able to give it to others. One last method is by having a sponsor through a recovery group, like a New Life recovery group or Celebrate Recovery, because you may need somebody who's more available than a sponsor to be able to fill you up with that level of love you need.
Yeah, and I wonder here, Zoo, if really what's under your question about loving others is how can I, as a Christian, forgive my father and my stepfather who are unrepentant, who don't want to know me, who have abused me, and there's so much hurt there. How can I do that when I'm struggling to deal with all of the grief and the hurt inside myself? And so, and grief and forgiveness is a process. And so I love what you're saying here, Alice, because, learning, sometimes we just need to have the reparative experience when we're not going to get it from the person who's actually done the hurt to us.
That's right. Zoo, we're touched by your question. We know that God's got a plan. We're going to get you connected with a Christian therapist as an option. We'll also get you connected I was thinking what you just said, Marc, grief is a really big part of this healing journey for you, Zoo. It may seem weird because it's not necessarily a death, but it kind of is. It's that loss that makes such an impact. And we'll get you connected with one of those groups, as well as I'm going to send you a copy of Dr. David Stoops' Making Peace with Your Father. Dave, who is with Jesus now, was such a godly influence on my life. Allison, Marc, and I were talking about, the impact that other men have in our lives. They may not be our fathers, but they speak truth and they speak life into us. And Dave was one such person. But he also had a very conflictual experience with his own birth father. And so we just, I think that that'll be a great next step for you, Zoo. And we're so grateful that you were able to connect with us today. We're going to go back to the calls and we're going to talk with Jan, who's a Club New Life member. Thank you so much, Jan. She's calling from Seattle, Washington, and listens online. How can we help you today, Jan?
Hi. I have called in many times. I am the mother with 9 children, and 5 of our family have died within 6 years, and we're all grieving and we're hurting each other. We're not speaking to each other, and whenever we do say anything, it just gets so misconstrued. So I've been in counseling, and I think that I have the answer, of course, that we need family counseling, but they're not willing to go. And I've done grief. We've all had grief counseling available for a year. It's a year since our last daughter died. And I kind of just need some direction.
Jan, just so that we understand, of the family members, you just mentioned a daughter passing away. Who are the other family members that your family has lost?
2 daughters, 2 grandchildren, their father, and a son-in-law. My one daughter's husband died.
Did some of these happen in an accident, Jan?
No, all death in disease and natural causes.
Listen, Jan, just that in and of itself is devastating. So the fact that you're, go ahead.
I cry a lot, and the tears are good. They're really healing to me. So I love to cry as far as that goes. So just listening to your radio program, Waiting Gone, I've been crying the whole time. So that's good for me. And I don't think my kids understand that.
Well, and grief is so complex, and with the trauma that your family has experienced, and that's what this is. When you have these multiple deaths in such a short time, and not even in the order, right? It's not the natural order or what we expect to happen. We're not supposed to lose our children or our grandchildren. But yet This is where you find yourself, and the pain is reverberating. Well, you can hear the music, Jan. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and hear from Marc and Alice. Our hearts go out to you and the family. And grief is such a complicated thing, yet we will all experience it in some way or another. And there's no simple answer. It's not going to be, I can tell you, Marc and Alice aren't going to say 1, 2, and 3, and then you're all going to be fine. That's not what the answer is going to be. But we'll get you moving in the right direction. We'll be right back.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are. Club New Life changes lives.
You guys came along into my life in 2022. That was a really, really difficult year of my life.
You can help New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people by joining Club New Life today.
I began to really process a lot of things that I've needed to for a long time, and y'all were a very big part of that.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
I came out of it having never experienced anything like that, and y'all were there.
Join today and help continue the message of hope to a troubled world.
I knew I had to keep going, and I joined Club New Life, and y'all have been the resource that has now been a light for my wife and I.
Go to newlife.com/CNL, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places.
Keep doing what you do because it makes a difference.
newlife.com/CNL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. I always say thank you to those of you who are supporting New Life Ministries, because every gift that you give makes a difference in the lives of so many people. We connect with churches all across the country because we believe in the power of the local church. And we have a church resource page that you can go to at newlife.com. Click on resources. You'll see church resources. I mention this because I can't say thank you enough. You are making a difference in the lives of the people that call in, of the people that you may hear on the radio, as well as in our intensives. We want you to know that God is working through your gifts through New Life. And we just want to say thank you. If you want to donate, you know where to find us, newlife.com/donate, or you can call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Right now, we are talking with Jan, whose heart is broken. Her family's hearts are broken. And we hear the pain. Jan, we're going to go right into just responding. Marc, how about you start?
Yeah, Jan, I'm so sorry for all of these multiple losses here. And it sounds like it's hard to move through the different stages of grief when another trauma keeps on happening and another trauma keeps on happening. And so grief really has been prolonged, it sounds like, for all of you. And, as Becky was pointing out about deaths happening in certain orders here. I mean, we do kind of expect that a grandparent will die eventually, but to lose a spouse or to lose a child or to lose a sibling is very unexpected and shocking. And I can see how each member of your family is likely in a different stage of grief. And it can even be easier to detach at some point to stop the pain. What are your expectations for how your family should be responding?
Well, I'm the 90-year-old, and they're the sandwich generation. They have grandchildren of their own, and actually I have 50 grandchildren. 51st just was born. So we have a big family, and everybody is very dedicated to each other, but whatever is happening now is more like a demonic attack, in that I'm the common denominator. I keep telling them all that I have admitted and apologized and done everything I know how to do, and nothing is working. And so we're clashing, and
Jan, what would it look like if it was working? What is your expectation of working?
That we would just listen to each other. We would talk with a counselor, more than likely with a Zoom meeting or something like that.
What would you talk about, Jan?
I would tell them anything they wanted to hear. It seems like I would be repeating what I have already said over the last 6 years. So I kind of want to know what new do they want to hear.
So Jan, as you're so dedicated to going deep, and not a lot of people have the courage to do it, and you've already been practicing, you laid it out for them, and I think you have a good hope that they would see the benefit and be willing to go deep with you. And they're not yet. And so I want to caution you and have you rethink inviting them into deep conversation, because they may be too raw to go there. Even though they should, we wish they would. We know it would be helpful. But if they're invited too much or pushed too much, it may make them retract and rebel against it. And so I want you to consider taking a different tact. I want you to keep modeling how beneficial structured healing is. Model it in your actions, model it in the way you treat them, but don't invite them anymore for a time. But rather, I want you to let the safest people in the family know, the ones that are most receptive. I really want to connect with you. And I think what I've been doing maybe hasn't been working lately. So I wonder what would work better. If I just stayed lighthearted, if we just talked about what's happened in your life lately, would that be better? Or maybe you'd rather do something with me rather than talk. Like, can we just walk? Or can we just go to a movie together? Is that what you need to be able to connect? Because the other version, I think, has been too overwhelming for them with all the overwhelming emotions they're feeling already. How do you react to that, Jan? What do you think?
I think you're right on target. And I've thought of that myself, too, and tried all of that. And then I get accused of, you're not dealing with what the issue is.
What do you think? What have they told you the issue is, though, Jan?
That I do everything wrong by whatever I try to do to help myself. This is really extreme, and it sounds like I'm blaming the kids because they are responsible for their actions, but they are worried and afraid. And they have their opinions.
Jan, when you say they, is there a particular one or a particular two who is saying this?
A son particularly. I tried to let him come in on being my advocate or my, not a power of attorney. There's another son who's a power of attorney. And, let them go to the doctor with me and participate and be a part and all of that. I drove myself there. He drove me back home. And I said, can I have my car keys? And he said, you are never, ever going to drive again. And it was okay at that moment. I just said, wow, I can tell you right now, I already forgive you, but before you even ask for forgiveness. And then the shock set in, because then the car was disabled, the cables were, and it was just traumatic. I felt like it was PTSD, and what I was getting counseling for. And then my older son with the power of attorney and daughter, who had the daughter's power of attorney before she died, they were traumatized. It just sounds so
Jan, it's very confusing and shocking that your son laid down that rule so suddenly to you. And so I think there are a few things here. One may be you've got to, I think you need an outside opinion about who is safe that you can trust, because maybe what your son did was protecting you. Maybe he had good reason, but maybe he didn't. He did have good reason?
He thought he did, and he's calling me this afternoon.
But the way you explain it sounds harsh in the way that he did it to you, and I don't know if that.
And sometimes we're gonna run out of time here, Jan. We want to give you some insight, but sometimes people's reaction is based out of their fear, and and I knew that you probably. I think I remember you calling about that issue in particular, and. So you say that he's calling this afternoon, and you guys haven't talked in a while?
Yeah, I just sent him a text. We haven't talked for months, and I sent him a text and wished him happy Father's Day, and he responded back for the first time and said, I will call you this afternoon.
Okay, so you guys, let's coach Jan. How can that conversation go the very best way possible?
You might need to tell him, I need to understand why you've made some decisions for me. Could you give me 3 reasons why? we haven't been talking. 3 reasons why I shouldn't be driving anymore, because I need to process that with my therapist. I'm struggling to accept this. So would you tell me that? And then I'm going to take it into my session and work on it. And your therapist will help you decipher, is this trustworthy, or do you need to bring another child in, involve them to help advocate for you, because maybe you can't trust your son's decisions.
And I think what I would say, Jan, is to make sure that the person who is helping you make these decisions is somebody who you trust and somebody who cares about you and is going to deliver news in an empathetic and loving and comforting way.
Yes. Well, Jan, stay tuned and we'll get you connected with a therapist if you don't already have one that you're working with. It is tough. We'll be praying for her family. Thank you, Marc, and thank you, Alice.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Thanks for watching today. We love helping people. I hope you sense that. And we know that there's always hope if you find the right resource. Now, if something we've said to somebody else applies to you, that's fantastic. That's what we're hoping for. But also, if you want to join us directly, you can call 1-800-229-3000 between 1 and 3 Eastern Time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Those are the best times to get through. And while you're here on YouTube, check out these other videos that we've done to help people see where they could grow or a different path to take. And if you do that, would you give us a thumbs up on the video, and please subscribe to this channel. There are many ways that we can help you outside of the radio program, and it's very hard for some to pick up a phone and dial 1-800-NEW-LIFE, but when you do, we put you in touch with somebody who cares about you, knows all the resources out there, and they're going to find the best for you. There is no reason to struggle alone. I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope you'll invite somebody else to come and join that maybe needs just a little bit of help along the way. I'll see you next time.